On this episode of Locked On Angels, it's GM week in 2024. We're kicking off this week by looking back at the free agent signings that each of us wanted last year. And then we're going to look at their stats. We're going to look at their season, and we're going to look at if their production would have actually benefited the Halos. And then you can decide if we get fired or if we get extended. So we're going to have some fun today. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with Jon and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Tuesday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, it's our third off-season here at Locked On Angels, and we're longtime Angel fans. We've been fans our whole lives. You aren't going to see us bandwagon, hopping bandwagons or anything like that. We're through with the Angels thick and thin, Mike. And so we're proud to be the hosts of Locked On Angels. In fact, the offseason is one of the most fun times for us here on the show because of this very reason. It's GM week, and I love GM week. It's our third GM week that we're doing this now. And we started last year with the tradition of looking back at our offseason picks from last year and deciding if we get to keep our jobs. Maybe we get an extension. Maybe we get fired. We're gonna do that on today's show. So we'll look at my picks, Mike's picks, and then figure out where we hit and miss. Remember, we kept in mind the fact that the Angels don't like to go above the luxury tax. Turns out we both blew right through the luxury tax, and we both have our reasons why, and we'll talk about that last year. And we did do that last year. So we'll take a look at the picks we made, the players' performances, see if they outperformed what the Angels got from that position. In fact, we're going to use FanGraphs, Mike, for all of the stats to keep everything consistent. And that includes FanGraphs WAR, which is a little more stringent than Baseball Reference WAR. Yeah. And then we're also, for the pitchers, we're going to use ERA minus, which is the opposite of ERA plus. So the lower the number is, the better that pitcher was against league average. And then, of course, for hitters, we'll use weighted runs created plus. Again, a little more stringent than OPS plus. So now that we got that all out of the way, Mike, it's time to look back at your picks from last year as GM Mike. Let's go.
Yeah, my logic last year was that I'm choosing to treat the Halos for who they are. They are a large market team that makes money. That was my logic last year. I'm saying it this way so that Artie will hear me. You're a large market team that makes money. Stop acting like you don't have money and you're trying to cut corners, and stop telling us that other teams have to go into debt and take out loans and all of those things. One team had to do that. Okay, I got to calm down. All right. So the first signing that I went for last offseason, Jon, was Yamamoto, who went to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And the salary I was going to give him was $22 million a year. His actual salary this last year was $9.16 million. Comes out to $27 million a year towards the luxury tax in each of the 12 years that he was signed for. So here's his stats. He had a 2.8 FanGraphs WAR, was 7-2, 18 starts, 90 innings pitched, a 3 ERA, an ERA minus of 74, so 26% better than league average, 10.5 Ks per 9, 2.2 walks per 9, and a 1.11 whip. Whew. And remember, he was injured from June 15th to September 10th with a shoulder issue, but he did pitch incredibly well in the playoffs, especially when they got into later on in the playoffs, really helped the Dodgers get to the World Series. That leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
So how did Yamamoto compare to the Angels rotation in 2024? Well, he would have the best ERA in the rotation with an even 3. Anderson, of course, had a 3.81 ERA. Jose Soriano had a 3.42 ERA. Yamamoto had 18 starts because of the injury, so that's less than Anderson, Canning, and Soriano, but it's more than Detmers and Sandoval had. And then, Mike, the Angels gave 20 starts to Carson Fulmer, Jose Suarez, Ronzi Contreras, and Davis Daniel. 18 of those could have gone to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Really depends on, when the injury occurred and when they needed him, but essentially probably would have seen less starts from those kind of guys and more from Yamamoto.
And then my second signing, John, was Jack Flaherty. I was going after pitching, and so he went to the Tigers. Obviously, my salary that I was going to give him was $11 million a year. Actual salary that he received was $14 million a year. Remember, he got traded from the Tigers to the Dodgers, and he really helped the team again in the World Series, and said that he loves it there and wants to stay there, according to all reports and interviews. Now, last year, I know that he had regressed. I said that he had regressed the past 2 seasons. He had a 4.84 ERA over 38 games and 35 starts. And I thought he was a worthy gamble for a pitching needy team like the Angels. And I thought this would be a good move, John. So was I right?
You were right, my friend. His 2024 numbers, he had a 3.2 FanGraphs WAR. He was 13-7, made 28 starts, 162 innings pitched, a 3.17 ERA, an ERA minus of 79. That's 21% better than league average. In fact, the Tigers traded Flaherty to the Dodgers. They got Tyron Lorenzo, who became the Tigers' number 6 prospect, and Trey Sweeney, who became the Tigers' 18th prospect in their top 30. So even if the Angels could have moved Flaherty at the deadline, they would have gotten some good stuff back. And it's funny that the Tigers still made the postseason despite giving up one of their best pitchers other than Tariq Skubal, right?
Yeah. I also wanted to sign some bullpen arms. So I first went after Yariel Rodriguez, who ended up signing with the Blue Jays. The actual salary I was going to give him was $10 million a year. And the salary he received this last year based on the luxury tax was $6.4 million a year. And his stats last year, he had a 1 FanGraphs WAR, was 1-8, 21 starts, 86 and 2/3 innings pitched, and a 4.47 ERA. Had a 1.12 ERA minus, so 12% worse than league average. And he was hurt from April 30th to June 21st with a back injury. John, they didn't use him, the Blue Jays, as a reliever. I was going to use him as a reliever. The Blue Jays, they used him as a starter, didn't they?
Yeah, they used him as a starter this season. Maybe that's why, there was a lot of that going on this season. And you wanted to have him as a reliever to go with Ronaldo Lopez, who went to the Braves. You were going to give him $6 million a year. His actual salary based on the luxury tax averages out to about $10 million a year. Mike, he was freaking phenomenal this year. 3.5 FanGraphs WAR, 8-5, 25 starts, and 1 appearance in relief. 135 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 1.99 ERA.
Wow.
And he was 52% better than league average. You wanted him as a reliever. Braves made him a starter. They knew what they were doing out there in Atlanta with Lopez. And then they get to keep him for the next couple of years too.
Yep. And then I wanted a couple of bats, John. So I wanted to sign Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who ended up going to the Diamondbacks. $14.5 million was what I was going to give him. He actually had a salary of $14 million based on the luxury tax last year. His stats last year, John, pretty good. 2.2 FanGraphs WAR, 279 batting average, 322 on base, 435 slugging, and a 757 OPS. His weighted runs created plus was 108, so he's 8% better than league average. And the Angels got a combined weighted runs created plus of 93 from the outfield last year. So I thought that this was a pretty good deal for the Halos. Then I also wanted somebody that you and I've talked a lot about behind the scenes is Ahmad Rosario. He was on the Rays and then went to the Dodgers and then went to the Reds. I was going to give him $6 million a year. Johnny only got $1.5 million a year, but he had pretty good stats last year. Not great stats, but pretty good stats, right?
Yeah. In 2024, he had a 0.3 FanGraphs WAR, but the slash line, especially the 280 batting average, just hit. And now the on base was 306, the slugging was 380, and the OPS was 686. So not super impressive. He had a weighted runs created plus of 96. And so I think that, we'll talk about it later, whether you hit on that, but to have him as like a backup guy, I think would have really paid off. Mike, another backup guy you wanted to actually bring back was Gio Urshela, right?
Yeah, Urshela. I was going to give him $8 million a year because we're a fantastic team. We've got money to burn, right? His actual salary was $1.5 million, and his stats last year not great. 0.7 FanGraphs WAR, 250 batting average, 286 on base, a 361 slugging, and a 647 OPS with a weighted runs created plus of 81. But to my credit, can I take some credit here?
Of course.
To my credit, with Ahmad Rosario and with Gio Urshela, you've got quality major league backups to guys like Zach Neto and Luis Rengifo. And when Rengifo gets hurt, you can have Urshela play in that position, or you can have Ahmad Rosario play in a certain position. You're not stuck with an Eric Wagaman. You're not stuck with somebody that doesn't have any really major league experience at all. You're not going from major league roster to, gosh, that guy is no good, and there's a big gap in between. And so that was my thought process in signing those two guys. I was a bit generous with their finances, but remember, SpotTrack was giving suggestions as to what their price tag was going to be. So we were just running with the information that was out there at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting that, SpotTrack had those guys $6 million and $8 million, and those are the numbers you were going off of. And then they both got $1.5 million. And then, Rosario makes the move to the Dodgers for not very long. Then the Reds pick him up. And so, just really interesting what happened with those guys there. What would you say out of all of these? I have my thought, but what do you think is your biggest win here?
Biggest win, obviously, I think Jack Flaherty
that's mine too.
Is probably the best selection out of all of those guys. I do like the Gurriel idea, though, that signing, because he would have been their best outfielder last year, and that slash line, so consistent, would have been so good in this lineup that really desperately needed a bat after Mike Trout went down and Anthony Rendon couldn't hit. They needed a consistent major league bat and a major league batter in that lineup. And I think Gurriel would have been somebody that would have been really fantastic in Anaheim if the Angels signed him.
I think what was great about your choices was essentially you went after a lot of pitching. You wanted to improve the starting rotation and the bullpen, but you also left things open for guys to still get reps, the guys that we were expecting to be in the starting rotation, and also the guys who should be starting in the infield and the outfield, but also having those major league pieces to keep them competitive. Well, we all saw what happened when they didn't have those major league pieces this season. So I'd say overall did a really great job last year. You were generous with some and then fell short with the salary in other areas, but let's call it even, right? Let's
even Steven.
Let's take the $4.5 million extra you gave to Rosario. Let's give that to Flaherty, and then you
we'll just move it around.
Deal. Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks for making Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to take a look at my moves from last year and how my GM moves stack up against Mike's moves, and then the actual results of what happened. Were they good moves? Were they bad moves? We're going to get into all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with healthcare providers who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. You can see their website for details and important safety information. Subscriptions required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. And if you haven't done so already, whether you're watching on YouTube or TV or somewhere, you're listening on a podcast platform, come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel. It helps Mike and I directly. And Mike, we're almost to 8,000 subscribers in the last week since we've been asking. Everyone's like, yeah, I'll help out. So if you want to help out the Super Halo Bros too, we'd love to have your subscription. Super easy to do. And even if you don't watch on YouTube and you're an audio guy or gal, you can still help us out by subscribing and then just leave it at that. That'd be super helpful for us. So thanks everybody who's done that so far. Let's get to 8,000. Let's go.
Heck yeah. All right, Johnny, let's talk about your moves from the last offseason. Your logic from last year was, I think, interesting. And I liked your thought process. So why don't you share that first?
Yeah. My logic last year was invest in the long term and then roll the dice in the short term, meaning get some guys that you want to be here for a while and spend a little bit more on them. And then in the meantime, get some, 1 or 2 year deals for guys who, aren't in their prime anymore, but could still help you build toward future success. And then my thing going into last season was no expectations, get the answers to the questions you've needed to figure out for a long time. Like, is Joe Adell worthy of a major league roster spot? What can you get out of Zach Neto in a full healthy season? What about Logan O'Hoppe? I think a lot of those questions got answered this last year, but there wasn't quite the supplemental pieces the Angels needed for this year. So that's kind of what my logic was last season. I said, take steps forward with your young guys and play competent baseball with some pieces that are going to help you do that. So Mike, I started last season with Whit Merrifield, who ended up with the Phillies, later spent some time with the Braves. I was going to give him $8.5 million, and he actually got $8 million, so I could have signed him. That would have worked. In 2024, he had a .4 FanGraphs WAR. Not great. 222 batting average, 311 on base, 314 slugging, and a 625 OPS. A weighted runs created plus of 80. That's 20% worse than league average. He did play second base, third base, and left field, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get him. But also his offense was not as good as it was in years past. I wanted him to hit for average with runners in scoring position, and he didn't do either of those this year. So that would have been a bad signing on my part.
Yeah. And then you also went with another guy that's kind of a flexibility guy, a tool belt guy, and that's IKF. Okay, so he can play shortstop, third base, outfield. He was with the Blue Jays. Then he went to the Pirates. You were going to give him $6 million. He was actually signed for $7.5 million.
Yeah.
Feels like a lot, right? And so his stat line wasn't bad. He had a 2 FanGraphs WAR, 269 batting average, 306 on base, 376 slugging percentage, and a 688 OPS with a weighted runs created plus of 93. John, you wanted him to play all over the infield, right?
Yeah, and that's what he did this past season. Second base, third base, just had 1 inning in center field this year, so didn't play the outfield as much. Mike, when he got traded from the Blue Jays to the Pirates, get a load of this name, Charles McAdoo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, McAdoo or whatever, but it's a fun name. Now he's the 7th prospect in the Blue Jays top 30 prospects. So, and he's also kind of a Isaiah Kiner-Falefa type where he can play all over the infield and the outfield. So really interesting get back for IKF. And again, some of what I wanted to do last season was, hey, sign these guys and then trade them at the deadline if you need to.
Yeah.
And that's what the Blue Jays did with IKF. Another guy I wanted to get was Michael Fulmer. He was a pitcher. He signed with the Red Sox. I was going to give him $4 million. Well, then it turned out, Mike, he had to have surgery, elbow surgery. And so he did sign a minor league deal. It was a 2-year deal with the Red Sox, and they knew he was going to be hurt for 2024. And then if he makes the majors, he's going to get $1.5 million. But last year he didn't play. He had UCL revision surgery. He signed a minor league deal with the Red Sox, and they're hoping that he'll pitch in 2025. If he comes up to the majors, it's going to go from a minor league deal to that $1.5 million.
And then you also wanted to sign Yuri DELOS Santos. He went to the Yankees. You were going to give him a minor league deal. The Yankees actually gave him a minor league deal, and he didn't pitch in the majors, John. He had 51 games in the minors, 1 start, was 2-2 with 59 innings pitched, and a 4.12 ERA, but probably would have been somebody that the Angels could have relied upon because they used a lot of their AAA guys last season.
Yeah, he would have been a bullpen piece in my version of the Halos, and he's got some really good stuff. And that's kind of what I was looking at. And that's why it was like, hey, give this guy a minor league deal, get some depth for your bullpen. Well, obviously the Angels went some other directions with the bullpen and ended up getting some really good pieces through trades and some guys emerging and getting stuff back for like Carlos Estevez and Luis Garcia. So I think the Angels did well there. DELOS Santos, to me, I broke even there, I suppose.
Yeah. I liked this next move. You wanted to sign Aaron Nola. Obviously, he re-signed with the Phillies. Yeah. You were giving 28 million a year. He signed for $24.5 million a year. Johnny had a really good year. 3.2 FanGraphs WAR, 14-8, 33 starts, almost 200 innings pitched, 199 and 1/3 innings pitched. So that's almost remarkable now in today's baseball. A 3.57 ERA with an 86 ERA minus. So he was 14% better than league average. And he did what Nola always does, right? And this is exactly what you wanted him to do if you signed him to the Angels. You're muted.
Muted there. It's the 200 innings that he did it again. And that's why I wanted him, but he was also one of those guys that, was one of my long-term guys. Maybe the Angels don't have a good season, even with Nola on the team, but it's like, okay, we have Nola for the next, 4 to 6 years or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And that gives the Angels a chance to get better and better as they have this really great anchor piece in the starting rotation. Somebody I'm disappointed with is I wanted to bring back Matt Moore. I was going to give him $8 million. The Angels gave him $9 million. He had a negative 0.7 FanGraphs WAR. He went 5-3 in 51 games, 48 1/3 innings pitched, like a 5.03 ERA, and he was 23% worse than league average. Just not a great returning year for Matt Moore. The problem was that I wanted to sign him for like multiple years. And so I would have been really in trouble if that had happened. And then the same situation with Shelby Miller, who went to the Tigers. I was going to give him $3 million. He got $3.25 million. He had a negative 0.2 FanGraphs WAR. He went 6-8 in 51 games, 55 2/3 innings pitched, a 4.53 ERA, ERA minus of 1.14. The Dodger magic wore off of Shelby Miller. I was deceived. By Tyler Anderson, and I was deceived by Shelby Miller out of the bullpen last season. So there's that Dodger voodoo for you when it comes to pitching.
And then your big decision last offseason was you would re-sign Shohei Otani.
I was going to bring him back.
All right. So tell us how you were going to bring him back.
I was going to give him $48 million a year. Now, whether that was 10 or 12, I think I was going to go 10, but I would easily go 12. The actual salary, remember, is $2 million a year. But if you're going to take into account the luxury tax, it's actually $46 million toward the luxury tax. Listen to this. This is something I didn't realize. Luxury tax, the Dodgers are going to take a ding of $46 million for each year of Ohtani's contract. And then the 10 years after he's done with the Dodgers, like it's $68 million.
Wow.
Toward the luxury tax.
So he won't even be on the team, but they're going to be taking a big hit because of that.
That's going to ding them in the years that follow. Now, here's the thing. 9.1 FanGraphs WAR, a 310 batting average, 390 on base, 646 slugging, 1,036 OPS, 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases, 130 RBI, 134 runs scored. I was willing to go through the luxury tax, quote unquote, as the Angels always say, well, we'll go through the luxury tax for the right player. Right. Otani to me he's the right player. And so that's why I made that move last season. So again, the $48 million a year, I know that falls short of what he actually got, but at the time, it would have been the highest annual average value of any player ever, more than Max Scherzer, Verlander, Mike Trout, all of that. So for him to earn that much per year was going to be a big reward for him. Here's the thing. I didn't know you could do all this deferral nonsense and all that stuff.
So, give you a penny now and then pay you later.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. So those are my pickups there. disappointed in some of them. And, somebody like Aaron Nola and Shohei Otani would have been great decisions for the Angels this past offseason.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, the sportsbook app, gives you everything that you need right when you need it. They have all of the live betting on the same page that you can see all of the stats and all of the play-by-play. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you just open up the app and it's all right there. And so you don't have to flip through and find this and open up the app on your phone and then also on your laptop. It's all right in front of you. So you can be a really smart bettor when you use FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And you're smart. You're a sports fan. You know you're going to win. That's FanDuel.com. So never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, so where did we hit last year? Where did we miss? Mike, if you don't mind, I'd love to break down what you did.
Tell me what I did good.
You did. You hit on Yamamoto, obviously. Now, despite the injury, he still would have been a boon for this Angels rotation. You wanted to sign him long-term and have youth in the rotation, somebody that you could count on for the next 8 to 10 years. Well, he's got 12 years with the Dodgers. Now he's down to 11 years. Flaherty was a great pick. I think that was actually the ball pick of your GM moves.
I agree.
Last year. Because obviously, I think everybody wanted Yamamoto.
Yeah.
But then when it came to Flaherty, you were like, you know what? Let me give that guy a chance. And the fact that he got traded to the Dodgers for the two prospects who now rank in the top 30 for the Tigers, I think is a really great thing.
Yeah, and then Gurriel Jr., I think, was a hit, John, because he had a better season in 24 than he had in 23.
Yeah.
And then Ahmad Rosario could have been somebody that could be used because Drury never played.
Yeah.
And Jack Lopez and Michael Stefanik and Adrianza were all in, and they weren't great.
No.
And so Rosario would have been a great backup for this Angel team.
We always say, and I think I said this on the solo show I did the other day, we always talk about, can the Angels just have league average hitting and league average pitching? Because then they would actually do something, because you have the handful of guys who are better than league average, and then everyone else is always underneath that. And so when you have a Rosario or even like an Urshela, I know Urshela wasn't quite as good as Rosario, but Rosario had a 93 weighted runs created plus. That's just 7% off league average, but it's that 280 batting average that sticks out to me, where it's like, okay, he would have kept the line moving. He would have got some hits. He could have driven in some runs. And so for me, I have to say that was a really good move. And that's what the Angels missed. Like they go from, Zach Neto to Jack Lopez. They go from Brandon Drury to Aire Adrianza and stuff like that. We probably wouldn't have even seen those three if somebody like Rosario and even Urshela were on the team.
Yeah. All right. So let me talk about your hits. I obviously think you hit with Aaron Nola and, of course, Shohei Otani. Johnny, I think the IKF move was a good move, because
he had a great season.
I think that he would have been somebody that would have been great on this team, whether he's starting or whether he's backing up or whether he's filling in or whatever might be the role that he plays. Plus, he can play all over the place. And just to reiterate the conversation we just had, he would have been somebody that you could go to because of injuries that happened on the field.
Yeah. I think that there was a stink on Isaiah Kiner-Falefa coming into the offseason because he was a Yankee, but he wasn't putting up Yankee numbers. Turns out there's a lot of guys on that team who don't put up Yankee numbers, but just because they're wearing the pinstripes, there's all these expectations of them. But at the end of the day, IKF had a decent year with the Blue Jays and the Pirates, and he would have been my guy that you don't go to every day. Like, you still let Zach Neto start. You still let guys start like Luis Rengifo or even in the outfield, but somebody you can plug in every now and then to really keep your lineup strong. And the fact that he had a good year, I think that was a win for me. Now, I have a couple misses for you, but I wouldn't say that they are complete misses, because you wanted Ronaldo Lopez.
Yeah.
But you wanted him as a reliever. Maybe I would split the difference there, because having him in the Angels organization would have been great. And maybe they would have made that move to a starter like the Braves did? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if the Angels would have done that. I think they probably would have stuck with him as a reliever. But maybe that conversation is why he went to the Braves, because the Braves approached him about being a starter. I don't know what kind of conversations they had behind the scenes. And then I think I missed on Yariel Rodriguez. I wanted him as a reliever. Blue Jays used him as a starter. But if I could take the middle here, because he wasn't great as a starter and he probably would have been better as a reliever. Yeah. And then Gio Urshela, I think Angel fans forced me into that, John. That's really what happened there.
That's what happened there. Yeah, everybody wanted him back after last season. I had a lot of misses. I think you actually won GM week last year. Matt Moore did not have a great season. Yeah. Shelby Miller didn't have a great season. Whit Merrifield, he did steal 17 bags, which I wanted some speed, but he just didn't hit for average. He didn't hit with runners in scoring position like he's done in the past. I think his career number was like 290, and last year it was like 187 or something terrible like that. And then Michael Fulmer, that was a mistake on my part, because I don't know that I knew he was injured before I wanted to sign him. But at the same time, I would have given him $4 million, and he got a minor league deal and didn't pitch last year. And then Yuri DeLos Santos, I mean, I think I can call it even on that minor league deal I wanted to give him. Yankees gave him a minor league deal. But Mike, I definitely had more misses than hits that you did.
Yeah, but I think that this goes to show something that I think the Angels really need to emphasize, in that you and I had a strategy and a plan when we went into the offseason. And so you may have had more misses, but you had a strategy. And I may have had more hits, but I had a strategy, right? And that's the big question right now, is, do the Angels have a plan? But this goes to show, like, if you have a plan and you're progressing in a certain direction, we're not going to be mad at some of these things, because in John's GM world, we have IKF, Aaron Nola, and Shohei Otani on this team. So there's something to build around, right?
Yeah.
But we also have good major league quality players on this team, like a Whit Merrifield, who wasn't great, but Whit was still somebody that was better than some of the guys that we're bringing up in Jack Lopez and Stefanik, and some of the AAA or Quad A guys, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys on the list that we missed on that would have been gone after the season. So, no harm, no foul. Probably would have had more than, 60 something wins this season, or 99 losses that the Angels had. So it would have been a very different year. I'm excited to redeem myself. I'm going to do that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. His show's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and he's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube, get in the comment section, and let us know what you think about our picks from last year. And I'm excited for tomorrow, because I get a chance to redeem myself, right, Mike?
Yeah, you're in the GM seat tomorrow, the GM hot seat tomorrow. Woo! Yours is redemption. I already feel the pressure, and my show is not even coming up yet, because I want to beat you again. Big brother energy, right? But John is going to be in the GM seat tomorrow, and I'm excited about that. John, I want your philosophy for this year. I want your strategy for this year, and I'm excited to see the players that you're going to select. For the record, John and I don't select the same players.
Yes.
So we try to stay away from that. So that's why we were so vastly different last season. And I believe we're going to do the same thing this season. So John is in the GM chair tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. Looking forward to that. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody. And we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
I would have extended you, because you're my brother and I don't want you to be homeless.
Aw, shucks.